This is California Edition. My name is Brad Pomerance in Sacramento, California, and we are joined by Matt Cate. He is the Executive Director of the California State Association of Counties, CSAC. He had served as the Secretary of the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation for the state of California for 4.5 years. So when we discuss prison realignment, you know from where you speak.
I do.
You actually were the individual that helped to implement, or really implemented, AB 109.
That's right.
And it's interesting that you are now at the county with the counties who, let's say, face some challenges with regard to AB 109.
I am, and I certainly get reminded of that
Right.
by the supervisors from time to time.
So let's talk about the impact of AB 109 on counties. As you know as well as anyone, lower level offenders, the 3 nons, are now serving their time in county facilities, not state facilities. How is that impacting counties?
Well, it's mixed. Frankly, I think the counties who were hit hardest, for example, by the recession, who had the least jail space, the least room, the oldest facilities, they're struggling to handle the new responsibilities as well. The counties that were doing a little better have really thrived. And so, you know, it's 58 counties and kind of 58 different answers. But there's been some things that I think are uniformly good. One of those is that under AB 109 now, the funds come to counties,
Right.
and they work together in community corrections partnerships to divide how to divide the money and decide what programs they should run. And so you put those smart minds in a room, and they've shown some success.
Here's what I've heard in terms of the number one frustration. I've spoken with many supervisors, DAs, sheriffs. Their biggest frustration is that because of the way AB 109 was written, it's only the most recent crime that is considered in the sentence, and enhancements can be added. And so even though the goal was to have people serving 3 years or less in counties, in some cases, prisoners are receiving sentences in counties that are over 10 years. That has caused tremendous angst. County facilities are not built for that. You've heard this before.
Right.
Talk to me about that, sir.
Yes. Well, it's a legitimate concern. At the beginning of the conversation about realignment, everyone was focused on 3 years or less.
Right.
There were some problems with implementing the law that way because of state mandates and other technical rules. And so instead, we developed this different approach where we said, if you commit this kind of crime, you're in, this kind of crime, you're out. And knowing we would have some long sentences, we just, at the end of the day, back when I was with the state, said, you know what? That's a problem we'll have to fix down the road. We just needed to get it implemented. As you recall, we had a $26 billion deficit,
right,
and federal courts breathing down our necks.
So here's the challenge, though. I'm sure you remember Senator Bill Emerson, former Senator Bill Emerson, had a bill which would have created a swap situation where if someone received a sentence beyond the 3 years, that someone who was ending their longer prison sentence in the state would come to county, and that other person would go to the state. Didn't happen. We keep hearing that it may happen. I'm sure you want it to happen now that you're at CSAC. Where do we stand?
Well, CSAC applauds Governor Brown for his proposal to cap jail sentences at the 10-year mark.
Right.
With good time credit is 5 years.
Right.
So that's a step in the right direction. Again, this area is incredibly complicated. I remember one of the concerns about the senator's bill was that if state inmates went to the counties, there was a concern that the courts, the court orders, and the court monitors would follow. And so,
I get it.
I mean, that scares everybody, and it should.
Let's talk more about it when we come back. For our viewers on HLN, I want to thank you so much for joining us. For our other viewers, we'll be right back with Matt Cate of CSAC. So let's continue the conversation and talk about the federal courts, which you just mentioned. If you ask me, I think it's nothing short of a miracle that the federal court in February granted this extension. I mean, I thought they were about to put Governor Brown in jail for contempt for not decreasing the size of the prison population. But they did finally grant an extension, a real one, for about 2 years. What do you make of the extension?
Well,
to decrease the size of the prison population.
Sure, yeah. It was, I think, the right move. Keep in mind, the governor and legislature showed a lot of good faith by passing AB 109. They've been criticized, and the population has gone down 25,000.
Which is remarkable to me because just as an observer, I think I agree with you. I mean, they really were trying, but it didn't seem until maybe the end of 2013 the court cared. I mean, those decisions were blistering. We're both lawyers. They were blistering. I mean, the words that they used against Governor Brown, just blistering what they were saying about the alleged attempts. But all of a sudden it turned.
Yeah, and it was mystifying to me. Governor Schwarzenegger actually started to stem the tide of prison overcrowding with some modest efforts to reduce the population. But Governor Brown took a quantum leap forward and at huge political risk. And the courts didn't seem to recognize that. And it was astounding to me. My greatest concern was that the courts would simply dump inmates on the streets. And that would have been truly a public safety nightmare. So the fact that they gave the extension, I felt like cooler heads prevailed, and that was good for all of California.
So what we understand is that we still need to see the prison population drop to, I believe, about 112,000 by February 2016, which is a drop of, what, about 5,000, you think, of where we are now?
Yeah, well, based on the last
Right.
projections I've seen, it may turn out to be about 7,000.
Okay. So do we get there?
Yeah, I'm concerned about it.
Right.
Prison populations are creeping up a little bit,
Right.
partly because counties are finding ways to still send people to prison.
Right.
Through
Overcharging?
Well, I don't know if it's overcharging, but it's at least charging in some cases around AB 109.
Right.
Finding the right crime that still sends people to prison using the three strikes law, et cetera.
Right.
So, but be that as it may, keep in mind we also have 8,000 inmates out of state.
Right.
And so the problem still exists, and finding a long-term solution to that problem is that job has not yet been done.
What about sentencing reform? We discussed sentencing reform. I mean, look, you know as well as I do, in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, any proposition that went on the ballot that increased prison sentences passed was 75% of the vote. We can't do that anymore. But we still have those prison sentences on the books. So where do we go from here?
Yeah, I became a deputy DA in Sacramento County in 1994, the same year Three Strikes Initiative passed, right? So my colleagues and I have been using that initiative and other sentence enhancements for a long time. And I think...
But is that the wise thing to do? I mean, if just because you can throw someone
Right.
away for a long time, do you?
Well, here's the problem. We're out of room.
Right.
And so and prison and jails have become a relatively fixed asset. So like you said, 110, 112,000 prison beds, 80,000 jail beds. It's expensive and time consuming to build. And so you have to think, what's the smartest way, the safest way to utilize those 190,000 beds?
Is it time to start talking, sir, about prison construction? State prison construction.
Well, the state did construct a large
Right.
healthcare facility, the 1,700 beds.
Stockton, is it? Or?
In Stockton. And, listen, I think over time, I know Governor Brown doesn't want to spend money on building more prisons, right? It's really expensive, $450 million, plus you have to pay the debt service, plus it's $150 million a year to run.
Jobs?
But there are jobs created, and the California's base population continues to grow.
Right.
So eventually, you need to probably build as part of the calculus. But he's probably right that you also need to look at sentencing overall and make sure we're sending the dangerous people to prison and keeping the less dangerous ones out.
Is there an appetite, sir, for true sentencing reform?
Not in an election year.
Right.
So maybe
Does it come from the counties?
Well, I think a number of county officials are coming around to the idea that something needs to be done. Now, we probably don't agree on
Right.
what exactly that is, but right now the jails are full, probation caseloads are high,
Right.
we're struggling, and so we are certainly looking locally at how to get the right people in and the right people out.
He is Matt Cate. I'm Brad Pomerance. This is California Edition.